on a whim, basically, you wind up caddying. You didn't have any experience as when you were younger whatsoever? You just kind of
No.
like cold.
I had played golf in like church golf leagues. But I'm a high handicap golfer. I'm not a passionate golfer, and it wasn't a huge part of my life. Like if you would have said to me 6 years ago, you're never going to golf again, it wouldn't have been like this horrible thing, like I wouldn't have been devastated to hear it. And it's not something that I envisioned. I remember actually in the phone interview that I had, like right when I applied, they do a little phone interview to see like if you should even go to the next step. And I remember 2 questions I was asked. One was how many clubs go in a bag? And I guessed correctly 14, but I did not really know that's the number, And then, cause I'm also a laid back guy about that kind of stuff. So even if I was a big golfer, it wouldn't be something I was real worried about.
Right.
And then the other one was, what's a 4 caddy? So to tell you how ignorant it was, I didn't know what a 4 caddy was as recently as the end of 2018. And but somehow, some way I like tricked them into letting me come for an in-person interview and the training and stuff. But yeah, it was not a big part of my life at all. It was literally desperation. Let's do something to feed my family while I have some other things that I can maybe get together.
And what would you say were your kind of emotions stepping into caddying? What were your biggest fears, or what were kind of your biggest concerns about
Yeah.
kind of having to learn that on the fly?
Yeah, so there's 2 really big ones. One was physical. Like I remember barely being able to walk like my first week of doing it when I was done with like it was like your hands are seizing up and you're just like almost crippled out there because your body needs to get used to carrying 2 bags on your shoulders. So physically I was really scared about that. And then secondly was, and this wasn't maybe as much of a concern as the physical one, only because I didn't know what I was getting into enough to be too scared about it. But I was like, a golfer's going to ask me something and I'm going to have no clue, what the answer is. And right away on my, my first loop ever was this nice gentleman from Savannah, Georgia, nice Southern gentleman. And we were out there with a veteran caddy who was meant to be like the lead guy. But the second day I got thrown to the wolves, and I'm out there with guys who are like low handicapped golfers playing the back tees. And they knew more golf than I could have ever hoped to at that point. And it was like, you're kind of embarrassed and you're just scared. And then they're like, what do you think this putt's going to do? And you're like, oh, this is the second time I've ever seen a ball putt on this green. So I have no idea. Let me guess. And
was that way?
Yeah. So there's a little bit of baptism by fire, learn on the job. And that's pretty scary when you're dealing with people who are there's a lot of really high functioning professionals that we meet out on the course, and they expect the best. And so thankfully I was humble enough to really learn from the veteran caddies that I was placed with on a loop to kind of follow their lead and ask them for help when I needed it. I came to it with zero cockiness.
Might have been the best way to go about it.
Yeah.
So Mark, my biggest question is, I'm sure things have changed over time as you've gotten more and more into the caddying, but like you said, you do have the big players come to the course expecting the best. What do you tell them your handicap's at now?
Yeah. Yeah. So I write about this in Caddie Tales, and my co-host on my podcast, Nick, one day, I was noticing when we would caddy together, people would ask him his handicap and he would say 7. And so then we ended up going golfing at Erin Hills, and legit, it was maybe the second time I had golfed that year. And we were pretty close, I shot like 101. He might've been in the 90s, but he's a good enough friend that I'm like, dude, you are not a 7 handicap. What? He goes, I know. But I got to tell people that so that I have credibility out there. And I'm like, from now on, I'm a 7 handicap. And so, And so I actually went through a stretch where I was telling people that. Now I just tell people, I don't get to play a lot and stuff. So because I feel 10 times more confident with my ability out there. And to be honest, I don't think you have to be, once you really, like when you work at a course day in and day out and stuff, you don't really have to be a great golfer yourself to caddy effectively. And so as I've grown in my confidence, I don't worry about it as much.
How long would you say it took for you to get that confidence in both yourself and the knowledge of the course where you really actually started to feel comfortable in what you were doing?
Yeah. I would say everything but reading greens comes relatively quickly. I would say, one of the things that I think I do well and my fellow caddies just do amazing is really judging what a ball is, what a distance, and then adjusting for the wind or whatever. That just seemed to come pretty naturally. You learn what the aiming points are pretty quickly. But being confident on the greens, I would say really the whole first season, there's a little bit of trepidation there. And especially if you were someone who maybe is slamming their club or acting really intense or whatever, it's not so much that you don't know it, it's you don't feel confident saying it. Now it's like you feel you say it and you're confident, and if they miss it, they miss it. You don't like let it affect you. But that first year it was like, oh my gosh, they're going to hate me, they're not going to tip me or whatever. You're a little bit scared like that.
Right, and you don't know the ins and outs of kind of how it works, and when it's your livelihood on the line, as you said, making this transition. Not, a lot of young people are the ones who are caddying and starting at an early age is something you see pretty common. So you're a pretty unique story, and going into that situation literally with no prior experience or not just sure what to expect whatsoever, on top of having to learn everything on the fly, must have been kind of like a double whammy.
There's very few people with my demographic. It's like the caddies are either guys my age, but they've been doing it for 20, 25 years. And then there's the young guys who come who have usually our young guys are pretty passionate golfers, and that's why they're caddying, and they're using it as either a college job or a gateway into the industry in a broader way. And so there's very few people who are like, hey, I'm 40 something and I just blew up my life and I need a new career and I'm going to go start caddying. I mean, I think I'm the one at my course.